Well, it's just super exciting to see all these bright and chipper faces so early in session. How about that? Thank y'all all for being here. We're going to get cranked up, and as I've said yesterday, and I'll say it again, we're going to run through these subcommittees as quickly as we can, and if you run through your part quicker than the 5 minutes allotted, except for the last two presenters, then we will move on to the next subcommittee. So that being said, I would like to ask Representative Kelly to open us in prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will everybody bow your heads? Dear God, we come to you this morning, Father, with just humble hearts. We're thankful for the opportunity you've given each and every one of us to represent our communities, to represent our state, and to do the work that's required of us this morning. Father, we ask that while we're doing that work, that you give us the wisdom and the discernment to make the decisions that are best for the 11 million Georgians that we have the opportunity to represent. Father, we just thank you for all that's been given to us, and we ask that you just watch over and guide us through our proceedings today. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Chairman Gullett, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. We'll get started on Court of Appeals 511. This increased the funds for the allotted judges' pay raise or semi-monthly pay period. It was for a salary enhancement from last year, and what we're doing is we're pulling out the judicial salary structure plan that was because the judicial salary structure has been reintroduced in the legislature this year, so that's saving $16,930. 513 increased the funds for mandatory website updates as part of the federal ADA. This is something we're looking at holistically throughout the state, and we're pulling back that $90,000 as we look at a better plan. Going to Judicial Council, 6.4.1, increased funds for judicial pay security initiatives. This is because of a bill last year that was passed. There's a new bill introduced this year that'll give us a cost savings of about $150,000, so we're changing it to $27,018. 643, reduced funds for personal services based on actual start dates. That's just a true-up for some positions in the hiring dates. 651, reduced funds for personal services based on the actual start date of position for the JQC. Juvenile judges had no changes. Section 8, prosecuting attorneys. 832, provide funds for one district attorney, investigator, 2 secretaries, and travel costs for the West Georgia Judicial Circuit. This is something that the agency has said that they have existing funds from vacancies to fill the positions. So we clawed back that money. 834, reduce funds for one assistant DA position in the new judgeship for Douglas Judicial Circuit. Because that judicial circuit did not pass last year, it's $79,076 coming back. Section 9, there were no changes. Section 10, 10.1.5, eliminated funds for judicial salary increase as the legislation failed to pass last year. So this is, again, just a callback. In public defenders, this is 37.2.1, increased funds for juvenile conflict division manager. This is something that we're going to take a little bit deeper look at as far as the benefits, and so that's really a callback of $226,517. And that's all we have. What's the will of the committee?
Move to pass.
Have a motion to pass. Do we have a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Morning, everybody. Calling to order General Government Subcommittee for Appropriations. Without hesitation, we'll roll into it. Department of Audits, State Accounting Office, and Department of Administrative Services, no changes. Attached to DOAS is Georgia Technological Authority, page 4, section 12.12, line 12.12.1. Reduction of approximately $80 million. The funding for software of the Board of Dentistry and State Board of Pharmacy is reflected elsewhere in the appropriate agencies, separating DCH IES project to a separate line item, which is followed below on line 12.12.2. This is the DCH IES project. Line 12.12.3, provided language to ensure General Assembly is regularly provided with complete accounting information by GTA. To improve the transparency with hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars that have been accrued in that account in interest. Department of Banking Finance, Department of Driver Services, no changes. Office of the Governor, page 7, section 27.1.1. At the request of OPB, we're transferring $5 million of the Governor's Emergency Fund to GEMA. Office of Commissioner Insurance, page 9, section 29, line 29.5.1, made an adjustment to the reinsurance program based on expenditures and funds that last fiscal year. Department of Labor, no changes. Department of Natural Resources, page 11, section 34, section 34.7. We're putting money in there to help various state projects around the state. Line 34.9.1. Additional $200,000 going towards the deer processing facilities. State Properties Commission, no changes. Department of Revenue, page 14, section 42, line 42.5.1, made an adjustment of right at just over $1.7 million to the local retirement program, local tax officials retirement program based on projected expenditures. Secretary of State, and State Board of Workers' Compensation, no changes. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the... Hear a motion? Second. Hear a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. We stand adjourned.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll call the meeting of the Education Appropriations Committee to order. Thank you so much for being here. In the interest of time, we will dive right in and look at those changes that exist. If you will, join me in section 24. Committee members will start 24.3.1. We're adding funds here for the American Association of Adapted Sports Programs for kids in grades 1 through 12 with physical disabilities. This is an expansion of this program. 24.4.1 and 24.4.2, these are changes that we are not going to look at here in the amended budget. 24.6.1, as you all remember, we've had our AP exams and PSAT exams continue to see demand increase. Enrollment has increased accordingly in those programs. Utilization has increased, therefore cost also increased. Everything in 24.18, the QBE program, those are all formula true-ups and just numbers that have been adjusted. No substantive changes there, except if you'll go with me to 24.18.8. This is not something that we would typically do in the amended budget, specifically at the school level, and we're still waiting on correct data there from APS. 24.23.1 and 24.23.2 go back to those numbers that I mentioned earlier that just a couple line items ago in the charter school that are not being affected here in the amended. If you look in section 25 ERS, there are no changes. If you will look with me in section 27, there are no changes. And lastly, in section 45, there are no changes. Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, what's the will of the committee? We have a motion. Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? We stand adjourned.
Good morning. I'll call this meeting of the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Higher Education to order. Glad everyone's here this morning. If we can go into section 41, where we'll start with the Regents, the University System of Georgia Board of Regents. If we'll first go to 41.15.1, that is a $500,000 reduction due to OPB challenges and changes. Go to 45.15.2 is clinical training for dental practice and dental clinical training. If you will go with me over to 41.23.1, campus security grant to maintain parity, K through 12 security. If we'll go on over to 44.6.1, Hero Scholarship, excess funds. I'm sorry. All right. A $330,000 reduction due to excess reserves. We'll go over to 44.14.1, Public Safety Memorial Grant, $540,000 reduction due to excess reserves as well. Down to 44.18.1 is a $45,000 addition for transcription assistance for non-public schools. And that completes the Board of Regents. If we can go on over to the Technical College System of Georgia, 46.5.1 is a $366,000 reduction due to hire dates. 46.5.2 is a $750,000 addition for advanced manufacturing training at Wiregrass Technical. 46.7.2 is a $131,000 reduction due to hire dates and vacancies. And that completes the technical college system. That's it. What's the will of the committee regarding these subcommittee? All right, sir. Second, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion from the subcommittee members? Did you say? You got a question? Yes. Chairman Martin.
Chairman Newton, is it not true that this is your first day presenting in your new role as chairman of this committee?
I can't comment on that. Yes,
Well,
it should be obvious.
I have a question. The big chairman, Chairman Hatchett, asked me to pass along. You mentioned higher dates. Chairman Hatchett's very concerned about lower dates. What about those?
I'll be sure to spell out HIRE instead of elevation changes next time.
Congratulations, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If there's no further valuable discussion, what's the will of the committee? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. All right, thanks. This recommendation's passed. We're adjourned.
Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and call the transportation, sub-appropes on transportation meeting to order. Thanks for being here. So we will go ahead and get right in on 47.11. We moved $7.5 million from the Georgia Infrastructure Bank to airport aid, $7.5 million. And then 4711.1, we moved $5 million from GTIB to rail. And then within GTIB, 47.17, there's $37.5 million left there, and we designated $7.5 million of that to be used for non-federally eligible airport projects. And so that concludes the changes we made in transportation. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion. All right, got a second? Got a motion, got a second. All in favor say aye. All right, it passes. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Hey, John, you want to trade committees? You want to
You
trade?
know what?
Want to?
I just make it look.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Everybody take a deep breath. It's good to see everybody this morning. So I will call the Subcommittee of Appropriations of Human Resources together today. As we move through this pretty quickly, we'll start with behavioral health and developmental disabilities at 15.1.1. This is going to replace the state general funds with other funds for the expansion of the very good hepatitis C screening services and core behavioral services that we have in our state. So we will restore that. The next change will be at 15.4.1 for the Sexual Offender Risk Review Board. We'll reduce those funds due to an actual start date, $278,000 plus for evaluator positions. Next, we'll move to Human Services Department. 28.3.2, to increase the funds to support the attainment of child support for out-of-state non-custodial parents. This is a very important program focused in DeKalb County. The next is at 28.4.1 for child welfare services. This we are agreeing with the governor on, but it is such an important measure to each of us in our communities that I want to make sure you're aware of this. So this will be for the CASA funding, the court-appointed special advocates, to replace federal funds that were deemed ineligible by the administration for children's services, and this will be for $1,719,000+. The next is at 28.4.2, to increase funds to help Special Victims Unit, who will help locate and rescue sexually exploited foster children. This will be an add of $1.7 million. The next is at 28.10.2, to increase the funds to provide a $3,000 additional salary enhancement for eligibility caseworkers. This will be effective April 1 of this year. We did take care of our child support and caseworkers in 25, so this is for those who particularly focus on eligibility. The next is at 28.11.1. This will increase funds for the utilization, growth, and costs of care. This is an add of $22.2 million. Now that sounds big, but this one is very important. As we all know, we've worked on moving foster kids out of hotels. This is part of that, those increased services and very expensive needs, not only for the children, but for the families that are hosting them. So this will help to address that. This is half of the ask, so we will see if the rest comes forward. The next is at 28.17.1, and this is for the Council on Aging to increase funds just for their support personnel. Right now they're operating with one staff member. This will help them finish the year with appropriate staffing. Next is in Veterans Services. Section 48.3.1. We're going to provide one-time funds to support the opening of the subacute therapy unit. This is very important for our veterans. This will be $1 million that the House is going to put forward to help them with an early 2026 opening. Very important that we finish this project and get it open for our veterans. The next is at 48.3.2 to increase the funds addressing the rising cost of health care for our veterans. So this will be a $1.5 million add and help them in the nursing homes to make sure that they are taken care of in an appropriate fashion and in a quick way. That is all of the additions that we have at this time and changes. What is the will of the committee? Thank you. Are there any questions? Not, I will take a motion. No? I do have a motion. I'm so sorry. Okay, sorry. And a second. I think we had a motion second. I'm sorry. It's early for Katie. Thank you all so much. It is approved, and we stand adjourned.
Good morning. This is the Appropriations Subcommittee for Health. I call us to order. I'll begin with 17.1.2. It provides funds for a pilot program that will be providing predictive modeling to detect potential fraud and waste in the Medicaid program. It's in the amount of $685,125. 17.1.3, reduce funds for personal services on the actual start date. It's the true-up. And it's a reduction of $1,025,465. 17.1.4, prepare for the implementation of House Bill 106. 17.2.1, this has to do with the Board of Dentistry. It's providing $263,396 for the implementation of a new licensing software to enhance that process. 17.3.1, the Georgia State Board of Pharmacy will have $237,167 for the implementation of a new licensing software enhancement for their process. 17.4.1, $35,642,908 will provide a one-time grant for the 45 rural hospitals and critical access hospitals to assist in financial stabilization and recovery from Hurricane Helene. 17.7.2, increase funds for growth in Medicaid based on the projected utilization. This was a updated projections from DCH. 17.7.3, again, it's going to increase funds for the Medicaid Part D clawback based on updated projections. 17.7.8, provide funds for skilled nursing facilities, inflationary increase to account for the cost of difference from 2022 cost report in the amount of $1,434,250. 17.8.2, reduce funds for Medicaid based on the projected utilization. 17.9.2, reduce funds for Medicaid based on a projection. Again, this was a reduction. 17.11.2, reduce funds for the personal services based on the actual start date. It's a true-up. 17.12.1 provides funds for 2 child and adolescent psychiatric fellowship positions in the amount of $79,402. 17.12.2 provides startup funds for graduate medical education in the amount of $12,500,000. 17.13.1 provide funds for a one-time enhancement for learning and opportunities to produce and prepare physicians in rural communities. 17.14.1, again, a one-time enhancement for faculty recruitment and retention, medical curriculum, modernization, and expanses for the pathways for medical students. 17.16.2, provide one-time scholarships funding for Georgia's rural medical students in the amount of $3 million. Okay, we will move on to Public Health. 38.1.1, provide funds for a campaign to educate Georgians on the sign and symptoms of colorectal cancer, $250,000. Provide funds for campaign to educate Georgians on the adverse effects of vaping. This is based on a House study committee, and it's $250,000. Reduce funds for the Georgia Coordinating Center in the amount of $3,065,309. These funds have not been used. 38.11.1, one-time funds for health department equipment in the amount of $500,000. That completes my list. Are there any questions? I have a motion to pass. Do I have a second? All in favor say aye. The motion passes, and we are adjourned.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and call to order the Economic Development Subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee. Thank y'all for being with us today. Jumping right in, Department of Agriculture, Section 13.2.2, we're reducing funds to reflect the start date. 13.8, Georgia Development Authority, we're recognizing the $100 million the governor previously authorized to be moved from the Georgia State Financing and Investment Commission to provide to farmers and timber owners. And then in addition, we're providing another $150 million, 75 for ag loans and 75 million for forestry. Moving on to Section 16, Department of Community Affairs, providing Section 1613.2, providing funds to support development and construction of additional water surface resources, $501,700,000. Section 13.3.3 will increase funds to support water and wastewater infrastructure through low-interest loans for our local communities. Originally, we were at $250 million. We added an additional $375,000 to help address some issues up in North Georgia. Section 1614, payments to One Georgia Authority. We're increasing funds for grants and loans for rural workforce housing at $28 million. Section 1614.2, increasing funds for rural site development at $20 million. And Section 1614.3, providing hurricane relief to communities at $10 million. On over to economic development, Section 23.8. We're asking the department to provide us some feedback on the efficacy of the rural development program, and then we're reducing funds for personal service in 23.8.2. Last but not least, continuing Section 23, economic development, 23.10.1, providing $7 million for the execution of public safety and infrastructure-related costs for hosting future sporting events, including the Super Bowl 2031 NCAA Men's Final Four, as well as the FIFA World Cup. And then on Section 40.2.1, Public Service Commission, we're increasing funds for the state shares for the cost of equipment and vehicle for one additional pipeline inspector at $42,142. That is the changes to economic development. What is the will of the committee? I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign? Thank you. Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Apparently, I don't have any friends. My analyst and most of my committee hadn't gotten here yet. We were scheduled for a little later, and we've run through it. But I see two. This one's going to take a little longer. We had a lot of changes, and I'd like to call the meeting of the Public Safety Subcommittee on Appropriations to order. I'm going to start off with the Department of Community Supervision. Section 18.2.2, reduce funds for personal services based on actual start date. These are true ups. You'll see this throughout my presentation here. We funded a lot of new positions last year in public safety, and some of them have different start dates other than what they're funded for, so we take that money back. 18.2.3, increase funds to personal services to reflect increased retention, and we put $2,315,000 in there to allow the Department of Community Supervision to hire back 25 community supervision officers. Moving over to the Department of Corrections. 19.1.3, provide funds to develop and implement a statewide targeted marketing initiative to recruit and onboard new correctional officers. We provided funds to develop and implement a state targeted recruiting intention plan. The governor put in $2,800,000. We reduced it to $1 million, and the reason for that is the marketing study has already been conducted. We did that, and we decided not to do the affordable housing study around the prison systems. Under 19.2.5, detention centers, increase funds to add correctional officer positions, improve staff to offender ratios, and reflect increased retention. We added $2,285,000 in there. It's spread across all the state prisons, try and reduce the ratio from 1 to 14 to 1 to 11. 19.2.6, you'll see this throughout again. It's increased funds for retention of experienced correctional officers to address compression. We've given, the last couple of years, we've given raises to the correctional officers, and we've neglected to give them to the supervisors. So now throughout the prison system, supervisors typically make $500 a year more than the correctional officers, so not many people want to take supervisory positions for $500 a year, so we're increasing their salary. 19.3.1, food and farm operations. We put in $4,210,000. It's 1/3 of their request for farm equipment and dairy renovations. Department of Corrections produces most of their own food, and most of their equipment's antiquated. Their dairy farm down there is about to fall down. I don't believe if they were in a civilian market that they could ship Class A milk, so we're trying to fix that. Private prisons, 19.6.1, increase funds to add 188 private prison beds at Coffee. And you'll see that throughout. It's about 400 prison beds that we're trying to add in private prisons. What we're doing is significant maintenance in some of our prisons, so we're moving the prisoners over into the private prisons so that we can shut them down while we do the maintenance. That comes at a cost of $2,455,000. We reduced it a little bit because no inmates have been moved yet, and we funded it beginning January the 1st. 19.6.2, increase funds provide for a cost of living adjustment for employees at the private prisons again. They're competitive in hiring with our prison system, and what happens is some of them are co-located, and whichever side of the road is paying more is where they go. So we try and keep equity, and this will do it. It comes at a cost of $2,666,000. It's the 4% COLA that we gave corrections last year. Under state prisons, 19.7.1, increased funds to add 330 correctional officer positions to improve staff to offender ratios and reflect increased retention. Governor recommended $10.4 million. We put in $13.5. We already hired 296, and they need more funding to continue hiring. 19.7.2, provide funds for project backlog and major maintenance and renovation properties at facilities. Governor recommended $37 million. We put in $36 million. It's for a CCTV, perimeter detection system and cameras, wastewater, boilers, fiber lights, evidence buildings, kitchen renovations. And we restored $1 million in a duplicate press on the list. We did reduce it because we found that there were 3 duplicate projects already in so we cut 2 of them out. $19.7.4, provide funds for additional facility maintenance personnel and regional support staff to address critical maintenance needs. They can't start till May, so we didn't fully fund it. It was recommended at 15.2. We put 9.2 in there with the start date of May 1. 19.7.5, provide funds for site work and construction of 4 126-bed modular correctional units to facilitate offender population movement necessary for capital and security movements again while they're doing work on the prisons. We're looking at putting in some modular units. They asked for 4. We're going to give them 2 and see how that works out. 19.7.9, provide funds for skilled craftsmen focused on heating and air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, and fabrication needs in the facilities. This is just a true up again because they put in $1.1 million, and They can't start till May, so we reduced it to $636,000. 19.7.12, provide funds to continue operating the digital forensic unit through a contract. The governor put in $1.4 million, we upped it to $2.6 million. What they have been doing is using the money that they derive from prisoners making phone calls to this fund, and the FCC says they can't do it, so we had to backfill that amount of money. 19.7.13, provide funds to purchase 1,460 body cameras and 1,300 tasers for increased facilities security. Governor put in $7 million, $7.2 million. We put in 10.4. Includes a Fuchsia's technology for the OWL system, which is Overwatch and logistics. It's all technology, and what it does is if a correctional officer pulls out a taser, it automatically picks on his body camera, and people in the control center can see what happens and send help. Plus, it provides evidence of what actually occurred after the fact. 19.7.19, increase funds for renovation, equipment, and technology for the creation of an Overwatch. I just talked about the Overwatch a little bit, but what it actually does, there's new technology that allows, if there's sudden movement, congregation, or things that are aberrations, they have a whole screen full of cameras from all over the prison. What it does, it identifies where this incident occurs, brings it up so that you can concentrate on it and send help to the appropriate place or do whatever you have to do. 19.7.20, increase funds for data intelligence, advanced integration system, $6,225,000. These technology for investigating contraband. If you ride through a prison, it picks up your tag number, and you get identified. If you go through 3 or 4 prisons, it's very obvious that unless you have a crime family and have people in all the prisons, that you're moving around the prison for reasons and gives them cause to investigate. We can, in the future, Florida and Alabama are also doing this. We hope to be able to connect all 3 of them together so we can share information. 19.7.21, increase funds for retention of experience. This is compression again for supervisors. 19 in transition centers. 19.8.4, increase funds for retention. This is compression again, $35,000. 19.8.5, increase funds to add correctional officer positions to improve staff to offender ratio and reflect increased return. In the past, what they've done is they've given up positions that they're allocated, that they get funded for, to take that money and give their people pay raises. So it's come home to roost now, and we need more positions. So we had to add $489,000 more dollars in there. Nothing in the Department of Defense, Governor's Office, the Georgia Emergency Management and Security Agency. We put in $5,750,000. The Next Generation 911 system. This is to help 911 systems, $5 million worth with the local systems all across the state. And 27.8.2, provide funds for startup funds for a school threat assessment tracking system. This is the school security system, $3 million statewide. Georgia Bureau of Investigation, 30.1.1, increase funds for a new pool car reservation system. Their system is antiquated, and they put a new one in. The governor put in $29,000, goes to 41. 30.1.2, increase funds to reflect an adjustment to statewide security contracts through the Department of Administrative Services. DOS just went up, so we got to pay it. 30.3.3, increase funds under forensic scientific services, increase funds startup costs for 1 crime lab assistant manager at headquarters crime lab. We changed it to increase funds for 2. In lieu of $15,000, governor's recommendation is $31,000, but it's a quality control oversight, and we want quality control with everything that comes out the crime lab. It's pretty significant in the criminal justice system, and the rights to equity and fairness in our courts to have the evidence be correct. 30.3.4, reduce funds for locality pay savings. At the crime lab in Savannah, they haven't had a medical examiner in several years. There are 3 positions there. They finally hired one this year. We've been paying them $50,000 apiece to go down to Savannah to do autopsies, and we've hired one now, so we took 1.5 positions back. That saved us $125,000. 30.3.5, reduce funds for personal services based on this is again a tune-up. 6 death investigators, a quality manager, forensic photo, and 2 business support analysts. They weren't hired January the 1st, so we took back $312,000. 30.4, regional investigative services, provide funds for the startup costs for 2 crime scene technical leaders and 3 digital forensic investigators. Governor recommended $221,000. We put in $165 for a crime scene tech leader for quality control oversight on all the crime scenes across all the major crimes, like the school shooting that happened up in Winder, to have a specialist that, again, it's a quality control issue. 30.4.2, provide funds for the startup costs for establish a strategic threat assessment group responsible for addressing threats to public officials, investigating homeland security matters, and partnering with critical infrastructure partners to provide support during major events occurring in the state. We added 3 people to the domestic terror, use them at GSAC, the Georgia Information and sharing for vehicles, desks, gear, gun, etc., travel and per diem. 30.4.4, reduce funds for personal services based on actual start dates. Again, $502,000 that we took back. And then these are the administratively attached agencies. The Criminal Justice Coordinating Council provide funds for continued operation of the End Human Trafficking Georgia 24/7 hotline. We said no to that. There's already a hotline in place. It's manned by advocates at no cost. They have 6 different agencies that they report to, including the GBI and the FBI when they get a phone call. CJCC wanted to implement one on their own, which would have been 24/7 with personnel costs to man it. So we said no. It's already working fine. 30.6, Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, Council of Accountability Court Judges, reduce funds for personal services. Again, this is, they didn't hire their people on time for an administrative coordinator position. Excuse me. Section 31, Juvenile Justice, increase funds for youth competency beds to address bed utilization costs. When juveniles are incarcerated and they're awaiting trial, they have to undergo testing to see whether or not they're competent to stand trial. They have to take them to a different facility. We've got 8 beds there. It costs us $348,000, which we put in the budget. Secure detention, RYDCs, 31.4.2, increased funds reflect increased retention of juvenile correction officers. 74 new positions that were vacant, and they weren't funded again because we took the money to give pay raises previously, so we have to refund them, and that's $681,000. Department of Law, 33.1.2, provide funds for 6 positions to expand the human trafficking unit to the Macon and Augusta regions effective April 1st. The governor put in $187,000. We reduced it to $93,000, and we took out the one in Macon. Data revealed that they had 47 referrals in Augusta, and they only had 8 in Macon. We didn't think that that was sufficient to justify the expenditures and putting a unit in there. 33.1.3, reduce funds for personal services base. This is a tune-up for organized retail crime unit with 7 positions, 1 paralegal and 1 gang prosecutor. We recouped $464,000. Pardons and paroles, clemency decisions. 35.2.1, reduce funds for personal services based on startup dates. Hearing officer and 3 investigators, they didn't come online at the time we spoke back, $57,000. Public Safety, Department of 39.5.1, we took back 659,000. Most of you know state trooper school can be difficult. They started off 4 weeks ago with 60 people. They got 35 left. So the salaries that are funded for that, we take back. It's $659,000 worth. Officer of Public Safety Support, 39.7.1. This, again, is 2 peer support and 2 social workers. The start dates, they weren't hired on the start date, so we took back $82,000. Georgia Peace Officers Standards and Training Council, 39.9.1, increased funds provide mandatory training for newly elected sheriffs. All the newly elected sheriffs have already undergone their training. The governor put in $246,000. The actual cost is $325,000, which we put in. 39.9.2, reduced funds for personal service based on actual start date of positions. Again, a deputy director and 1 curriculum operator, we took back $61,000. Georgia Public Safety Training Center. 39.10.1, provide funds for additional training for jailers in accordance with Senate Bill 37. What that happened last year was they now have given jailers arrest authority. They never had that previously. They've had to call, if they had to arrest somebody in the office, they had to call somebody in to do it. As a consequence, they have to go to training. Governor put in $168,000. We reduced it to $114 because of an April 1st start. 39.10.2, provide funds for 2 training instructors and supplies for increased basic law enforcement training. They have increased training now from, I think, around 1,000 hours to 2,000. They've essentially doubled the amount of training that they're going to have to go through. So they've asked for new instructors, and it's already in place, and they're using it. We authorized $258,000 for that. 39.10.3, reduced funds for rent at the Pickens Academy location. I'm not sure exactly what happened up there, but they're not in their facility anymore. It's a state facility. We don't own the property. They're working out of a sheriff's office up there temporarily. We reduced their budget, but we left them enough money in there to put all their equipment into storage until they get relocated. 39.10.4, reduce funds for personal service, based on actual new positions. We took back $338,000. 39.10.5, increase funds for expenses related to basic mandate expansion for equipment, weapons, ammunition. This is the same thing with the doubling up of the number of hours. Office of Highway Safety, 39.11.2, replace federal funds with state funds for personal services cost of 3 employees. They were 3 employees that were federally funded, and the federal government cut off the grants. We weren't convinced the positions were necessary, and the committee voted not to fund it. Are there any questions? Hearing none, do I hear a motion? I have a motion to pass and a second. I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? We're adjourned.
All right, good morning again. The hour of 8:30 arriving. Just sitting. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for many of you being here at 7:30 and sitting through these riveting presentations done by the great subcommittee chairs of Appropriations. Let's have a hand for the Appropriations Subcommittee chairs. And their expediency in presenting. We're going to kick off with prayer from Secretary Matt Barton.
Bow your head, please. Heavenly Father, be with us today as we try to be the best stewards with the money for the state of Georgia, and be with us. Thank you, Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. First thing we need to do, those of you that are members, don't be sitting in the very, very back. Y'all come up as close as you want. And the first item of business this morning is to adopt our 2025-2026 Appropriations Committee rules. I think most of you have copies of those. If you don't and you need one, raise your hand, holler. Only thing I'm going to touch on it is that we do a quorum of the full committee is 20 members. You all know that the later we get in session, it's harder to get a true quorum, because we do have either 82 or 83 members of the committee. So the quorum we are setting is 20. Anybody have any questions on the rules? What? I didn't hear that. Who was that? Okay, we have a motion. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor of adopting the rules, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And now we will present the amended 25 budget and turn it over to Vice Chairman Gaines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll turn it over back to you to present House Bill 67.
All right, would y'all mind if I go through line by line again? I know there's a certain individual in this building that would love that I do that, but the speaker doesn't require me to do that, so I'll take that liberty to not do that. So as y'all know, House Bill 67, the amended fiscal year 2025 budget is set by a revenue estimate of $40.5 billion. In addition to the traditional revenue growth, the governor's revenue estimate for the amended FY 2025 budget includes $2.7 billion in surplus funds for a total infusion of $4.4 billion, or an increase of 12.2% of the original FY25 budget. With the additional funds that are being recognized in this budget, the House joins the governor on the wise use of tax dollars with one-time needed investments in technology, capital, economic development projects, and two priorities of this House: public safety investment in the Department of Corrections and hurricane relief. If you've tuned in since 7:30 this morning, you know that there are some good things in this budget, so I'm not going to rehash every item. You've listened to the subcommittee chairs describe these one-time additions in our budget, including $500 million to improve the long-term viability of the employees' retirement system. Last year, we made this same investment, bringing the total infusion to the system to $1 billion over a 2-year period. These funds boost the long-term stability of the plan, improve the funding ratio, and eventually will support healthier COLAs for our state's retirees. It includes $750 million to GFA for water and wastewater infrastructure in coastal Georgia and statewide. This is historic investment of $500 million in direct aid and loans to coastal communities will provide additional surface water resources needed for current and future growth. And $250 million provided to GFA for low-interest loans for water and sewer projects statewide will help many of our communities struggling with aging infrastructure. $530 million in new funds is provided to the Department of Transportation for infrastructure projects along busy interstate corridors to support freight and logistics efficiency and safety. The House also adds $37.5 million to the Georgia Transportation Infrastructure Bank to assist local communities with strategic projects, including $7.5 million in airport aid and $5 million in rail. $58 million is provided to the Georgia Technology Authority to continue updating IT systems for state agencies, and $225 million to the Department of Administrative Services to meet the state's liability and property coverage needs. $114 million is provided to fully fund K-12 enrollment growth. $50 million for additional school security grants, and an additional $3 million to GEMA as seed money for a school threat assessment system, and $2.4 million for increased utilization of AP and PSAT exams. The House budget recognizes a need for our foster youth and adds $22 million to the Department of Human Services for growth in utilization and acknowledging the increased cost of care. The House also provides $1.7 million for a new special victims unit in the department charged with supporting the rescue of exploited foster children. And now to meet the most pressing issues in this budget, the state of our prison system and hurricane relief. The House, Senate, and the Governor's Office have all been working to identify solutions to the issues that are plaguing our prison system. I'd like to thank the Governor for hiring a consultant to help us evaluate and map out solutions, and for bringing forward the money to make significant and meaningful investments in our aging facilities and in our human capital. Though I know this is still just the beginning of a costly but essential endeavor. The House version of the budget includes an infusion of $333 million in new funds for the department. Now, this is slightly less than the governor's proposal. The House supports the governor's recommendation for increased education and health care funding, as well as for major repairs, renovations, facility hardening, and lock replacement. We identified savings from implementation dates and reduced the purchase of the secure modular units from 4 to 2 and redirected funding into the following areas. An increase in staff positions per year from 330 in the governor's recommendation to more than 400 in the House version. Increases in salary have been working, and the department has been able to fill and maintain positions at a higher rate. An increase in body cameras and tasers. The House includes 740 additional body cameras and 500 additional tasers above the governor's recommendations to increase correctional officer safety. $7 million for the creation of an Overwatch and logistics unit for better real-time monitoring of facilities for the protection of both staff and inmates. Additional funding for advanced intelligence and forensic tools and analysis to continue to combat the entry of contraband into facilities. Funding to address salary compression of senior officers with additional officer salary increases contemplated next year. And $2.6 million for cost of living adjustments for the private prison employees to provide parity with adjustments made previously for state employees. And finally, Hurricane Helene. We'll never forget that name. The House budget includes an additional $197 million in Hurricane Helene relief and recovery efforts above the governor's recommendation for a total package of $811 million. The House supports the governor's recommendation to provide $145 million to the emergency fund to pay for initial cleanup and relief efforts. $5 million is also added to initiate the Next Generation 911, an initiative that is important to all of our communities. $298 million is provided to the Department of Transportation to backfill the motor fuel tax holiday and to pay for infrastructure rehab, sign replacement, and debris cleanup. The governor had initially included $100 million to provide disaster assistance to farmers and timber producers. The hurricane had a $5.5 billion impact on agriculture and timber, not including future losses. This storm had a much larger impact than any other disaster in our history, causing generational loss, changing the landscape of our state, both literally and figuratively. Because of this, the House feels compelled to make additional resources available, and the House version includes an additional $150 million. This means a total of $250 million for farmer and producer relief, with $100 million provided to the Forestry Commission for cleanup and $150 million for loans for the Georgia Development Authority. Both of these programs have received more applications and requests for assistance than funding is available, and this funding addresses that need. You know, our local hospitals are often a lifeline in our communities, and this storm proved no different. I know many of you saw firsthand how hospitals aided in relief efforts in ways many of us had not anticipated, including providing food, water, shelter, and care to many who had lost everything. It's no secret that many of these same hospitals often struggle to maintain financial viability. And this budget includes an infusion of $35 million in one-time funds to assist in their financial stabilization. The path to recovery across many communities is still being charted, and needs still persist. For that reason, the House has included $10 million in the One Georgia Authority to have a source of funding available for continued relief efforts. And finally, the House budget includes $1.4 million for a $3,000 salary adjustment for benefit eligibility workers in the Department of Human Services beginning April 1st. Last year, we gave this adjustment to child support, elder, and child welfare caseworkers, but did not include the eligibility workers. It's been on my mind before the storm that we should have included them. These workers are often the lifeline for our constituents who need assistance the most. Following the storm, they were on the front lines processing DSNAP benefits for those impacted in a quick, efficient, and effective manner. I personally witnessed their caring work, and I'm proud to recognize their hard work during these sometimes difficult situations. In closing, I'd like to thank the subcommittee chairs and their analysts for their diligent and quick turnaround of this amended budget. Despite the most unusual weather event, do you want to build a snowman? You have risen to the challenge of finding a time to meet virtually or in person to give the governor's recommendations a thorough vetting. It was important to me and Speaker Burns that we stick to this strict timeline because this budget contains critical additions primarily as it relates to Hurricane Helene and the safety and security of our prisons. It's for that reason that the House has acted rapidly to do our part to send this bill to our Senate colleagues and then back to the governor so that these funds can get out the door quickly and they can go to work. Thank you. I ask for your favorable consideration of HB 67, and I will take questions.
Awesome. Well, we'll take a few questions. And Chairman Hatchett, I just want to say thank you for your dedication and work on this, and you've just done a tremendous job. So thank you for your leadership. We'll take a few questions. Number 52, Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the report of the budget. One thing that I missed, you said $35 million in one-time funds for hospitals. Can you kind of go into that a little bit for me?
So this is a grant that's based off of what these hospitals pay annually, for the public nonprofit hospitals pay annually to draw down their dish payment. It will be based on last year, and it's to help many of those that, like I said, had unforeseen expenses during hurricane. 35 of the 45 hospitals are in disaster areas.
Any other questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. Chairman Dubnik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Hatchett, for your work on this. Mr. Chairman, I move that House Bill 67 do pass by committee substitute.
Is there a second? Chairman Meeks with the second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if I could say, any questions that come up after the fact, any of our subcommittee chairs or myself or all of our great staff on the House Budget Office staff will be available to answer any questions. And thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Meeting is adjourned.